Practical wisdom for modern witches with your host, the Witch of Lupin Hollow. Good morning, modern witches. Welcome back to the Witch of Lupin Hollow YouTube channel. Today we are talking about understanding your spiritual identity through your natal chart. So your natal chart is your astrological chart of the moment when you were born. So your natal chart describes where all of the stars and planets were when you were born and at exactly that moment, because some of them move very quickly and some of them move very slowly. So when you dive into your natal chart, you are opening up this vast world of insight into who you are as a person. And this can help you to understand your career path. It can help you to understand how you love, how you express love and affection. It can help you understand how you communicate. It can help you understand your personality and the way that people perceive you. But it can also help you understand your spiritual path and identity, because your spirituality is a significant core part of who you are. And so your beliefs are definitely reflected in your natal chart. So we're going to look at 5 elements of your natal chart. We're going to look at your sun, moon, and rising signs. And then we're also going to look at your Neptune and Pluto signs. So your sun sign is basically the sign that you probably know off the top of your head, right? The sun sign represents your basic personality and ego, and it is based on the day of the month that you were born. So the sun moves through all 12 astrological signs in 1 year. So it spends just about a month in every sign. So the sun sign is the easiest sign to figure out. You don't really have to pull your whole natal chart to know what your sun sign is. For example, I was born April 20th, so I am a Taurus. Your sun sign represents sort of your basic core of who you are. So the sun sign is, who you perceive yourself to be, who other people perceive you to be. It's sort of the basic expression of just who you are, how you become visible, and the light that you shine out into the world. Your moon sign is the sign through which the moon was passing when you were born. It takes the moon approximately 29 days or so to pass through all 12 signs, so it moves much, much more quickly than the sun. It's going through all 12 signs in a month as opposed to in a year. So you do pretty much need to know the time that you were born to figure out your moon sign, because the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. And so if the moon changed signs on the day you were born, then you need to know what time you were born, or at least approximately what time, in order to figure out what your moon sign is. If you're lucky enough that the moon didn't change signs on your day and you don't know what time you were born, then you can at least still figure out your moon sign because it was in the same sign the whole day. So your sun and moon signs are fairly easy to find out. Your rising sign is going to be a little bit more challenging. Your rising sign is the sign that was on the horizon at the moment that you were born. So this is the constellation that was just rising over the horizon at that moment. So that sign actually changes throughout the day. So you do really need to know the exact time that you were born in order to get an accurate reading of your rising sign. So everything that we're talking about today, you'll be able to know your sun, hopefully your moon. If you don't know what time you were born, just disregard the rising sign because you don't want to get inaccurate information. Now the other 2 planets that we're going to look at are your Neptune and your Pluto signs. And those are easy to determine if you just pull your natal chart. There's a link below this video to create your birth chart. If you just pull your chart, Neptune and Pluto move very slowly. So they actually are considered generational planets in a way. So everyone born within a year or 2 of each other has the same sign in Neptune and Pluto. So those are a little bit broader. They tend to describe kind of a sense of a generation, or at least the year that, they were passing through that sign. But they do still have some really powerful insights for your own personal spiritual identity. So going back to what do these signs mean? So as we've already discussed, your sun sign is your basic personality. When you look at your horoscope, you're looking at your sun sign. But the other signs really help to color your sun sign and show you more depth and more insight into sort of what your spiritual path can be, as well as other aspects of yourself. So the moon represents your emotional self. It's how you handle, process, and express emotions, as well as any psychic or intuitive abilities you might have. So a lot of times the moon really reflects our intuition and the way that we interact with our intuition. How much you trust your intuitive powers, how psychic you might be, how much of your intuition expresses itself in that really powerful way where you actually feel as though you know what's going to happen or you know what someone's going to say. So the moon is your emotional self. The rising sign is your outward self. So this is really how people perceive you. It's the part of your personality that you reflect to others. Oftentimes people might actually guess your rising sign as opposed to your sun sign because it represents the version of you that they're most familiar with. Even if your sun sign represents you completely to you, to someone who doesn't know you that well, they might actually see more aspects of your rising sign within you. So sun, moon, and rising signs represent sort of the core of your personality. They represent, your basic ego and interests. They represent your emotions, and they also represent the way that people see you. So these kind of are the core signs when you're just getting a general overview of your chart, because these are, kind of the easiest things to look at and understand what it is that they represent. But you also have signs in Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. I got my planets out of order there, but that's all of them. So each one of these planets represents a different aspect of who you are. So for example, Mercury represents how you communicate. Venus represents your sense of beauty, love, and aesthetics. Each planet has something to do with who you are and how you express yourself. Neptune and Pluto in particular have a really big impact on your spiritual path because they have to do with spiritual topics in particular. So Neptune is the planet of illusion. It's sort of the planet of, mysticism, of pursuing ideals in a certain way. Neptune it's a very mysterious planet. It's a very watery planet. And so Neptune is all about sort of getting to, reality under the illusions. It's the illusions that you tell yourself. So it's really a planet of magic and mysticism. Pluto is a little bit darker. Pluto is more about the more taboo topics. Pluto is about the occult. It's about, true magic. Pluto is ruled by the god Hades, or Pluto, who is the god of the underworld. So Pluto is all about the taboo. It's about sex. It's about death. It's about money. Pluto is all about all of those taboos that we sort of push away. Right? It's the planet that's farthest away from us. It's the things that we, maybe don't look at about ourselves or don't want to understand. And all of that shadow work, all of that is definitely part of your spiritual path, right? Exploring your shadows and understanding yourself better. So these 5 signs, I find, are really the ideal way to understand your spiritual path from an astrological perspective. From there, once you look up your 5 signs, you can sort of see the 5 different planets, although, of course, the sun and moon are not actually planets. And the rising sign is more of an idea than a planet at all, but we call them planets. When you look up those 5 planets, you want to look at the signs that each of those planets are in. So each sign kind of colors the way that we perceive that planet's rulership, right? The topics and ideas that that planet rules. So I'll take you through my own natal chart as an example so that you can get an idea of how this works from a spiritual perspective. So I have my sun in Taurus, which I feel really reflects the fact that I call myself a cottage witch, because cottage witchery is all about home and sanctuary and comfort. It's sort of a holistic combination of kitchen and garden magic and all the different ways that we create sacred space. And those are all things that are really important to Taurus. So that's sort of my basic personality, right? My basic spiritual path is I call myself a cottage witch. I have my moon in Aries. So that's sort of a difficult, tense kind of combination because the moon is all about the emotions, it's all about intuition, and Aries is this very fiery, hot-headed, youthful energy that's all about action. Aries is ruled by the god of war. So moon in Aries can be a tense relationship. And so I think that that is, in terms of my intuition, it's sort of why I sometimes have a difficult time trusting my intuition, because the moon in Aries is, it's wanting to take action all the time. It's wanting to solve problems. It's wanting to fix things and move forward, when sometimes your intuition is about taking a step back. And so sometimes that's something I really struggle with, as much as I consider myself an intuitive person, having trust and faith in that intuition can sometimes be a challenge. I have my rising sign, which is also sometimes called your ascendant sign. I have it in Virgo. So Virgo is all about, at its core, most basic level, Virgo is about mastery. It's about mastering skills. Virgo is about organizing. It's about, getting things in order, creating order out of chaos. Virgo is a little bit of a type A personality. And in outside of my spiritual self, all of those things definitely apply, right? I am pretty organized. People will tell you obsessively so. I really like things to be in their place. I like things to be orderly. I like to have a plan. But Virgo also has a couple of other really interesting aspects. Virgo is also about healing. It's about the earth and growing things. Virgo, I feel, is really where I get my connection to nature. Virgo is why the seasons and working with herbs and teas is why that's such an important part of my practice. Virgo also has an interesting connection to Vesta, which we're not going to get into. There are lots of asteroids that can also have an impact on your spiritual path. But just within my own chart, Virgo can be really connected to this concept of sacred space, self-care, and sort of the sacred flame that Vesta is responsible for. So Vesta is actually its own asteroid, but you get some of those qualities through Virgo as well, which really helps to understand why, morning and evening rituals, and, really creating a daily spiritual practice, having that sacred space, why those are things that are important to me spiritually. Then moving into Neptune and Pluto, so I have my Neptune in Capricorn. This one is also a little bit of a tense relationship. Capricorn is the sign of work and career and authority. It's the sign that's ruled by Saturn, which is, sort of the authoritarian father figure planet. And Neptune, like I said, is this planet of illusion and mystery. So I think this is really where I get some of my questioning from, where my magic is primarily psychological. I have a lot of faith in the universe, in my own power to create and to manifest. To a certain extent, I believe in the concept of gods and goddesses. I believe in the concept of fairies. I definitely believe in ghosts and spirits, within their own reality. But I don't ever really expect to see a fairy. Like, that's not part of my practice. And so I think that as much of a witch as I am, as much of a mystic person as I am, my Neptune in Capricorn sort of keeps me in a little bit more of a logical state, that I'm always questioning, well, how did I manifest it? Or, why do I believe this thing? I'm always questioning my faith, questioning my spirituality, which for me is a really positive thing, but it can definitely get out of balance. So looking at your natal chart can give you a really good sense of where your challenges lie and sort of where your shadows can be. So for me, I'm always questioning my spirituality, but at a certain point, I need to remember that there is a sense of illusion and mystery that is good to have in life. And then finally, I have my Pluto in Scorpio. So Pluto's at home in Scorpio. Scorpio is, the same as Pluto. It's the sign of the taboos. It's the sign of the occult and magic and death and sex and, sort of all of these concepts that we push away. Scorpio wants to expose them. Scorpio wants to open them up and talk about them. And this, I think, is it's the main reason that I'm drawn to this path of, alternative spirituality and witchcraft. It's why I, practice witchcraft, is because I have this strong sense of the occult in my chart. But I think it's also the reason why the occult and witchcraft are becoming more mainstream in our society, because my generation has this Pluto in Scorpio transit that has really kind of brought us home to the concept of magic. Pluto moves very, very slowly. So I don't know the last time that Pluto was in Scorpio prior to when I was born, but it was a long time. Like, I think it might have been a couple hundred years. So, this generation is really bringing the concept of magic, the concept of the occult back into the light. We're bringing it back to be talked about. So as you can see, looking at your natal chart really gives you so much powerful insight into who you are as a person, as a spiritual practitioner, and, in my case, and maybe in your case, as a witch. So drop a comment below. I would love for you to pull your natal chart from the link in the description, and then comment and tell us about, what your signs are and how you think that they impact your spiritual path. And if you've got questions or you want to talk it through, drop me a comment or even shoot me an email. I would love to talk about it with you. I think that astrology has so much power to help us understand ourselves better. And that is why that looking at your astrological chart is a big part of my Discover Your Inner Witch program. So I have this whole program. It's an 18-week program full of videos and workbooks and all sorts of, one-on-one calls and all sorts of content to help you really discover your spiritual path and identity. And a big chunk of the program we spend looking at your astrological chart. So we look at these 5 signs, but we also look at the rest of your chart. You have the opportunity to really research the aspects of your chart that interest you, that spark your curiosity, and that really help you to guide yourself on the right path as a spiritual practitioner, and to, at the end of the day, help you discover your inner witch, help you get in touch with that intuition and that magic that you hold inside of you. So if you're interested in the program, there is a link in the description below as well. Or, drop me a comment or an email, and I'd be happy to explain more about the program, how it works, and, why astrology is such a big part of it. So make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified whenever I put out a new video. And I will see you next week.